Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Donnelly, Director of Webinars for Tech Channel, and I'd like to welcome you to our presentation, Inside the Integrated File System. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but feel free to ask a question or submit a comment at any time during the event by entering it into the Q&A panel. You may download a PDF version of today's slide deck by clicking on the drop-down menu labeled Event Resources and selecting the slide deck. Know that you can download those right from the platform without being disconnected from the webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by Fortra. And now I'd like to turn it over to Chuck Lazinski, Director of Technical Solutions at Fortra, to kick things off. Chuck, right. You now have the floor.
Thanks, Ginny. We really appreciate the long partnership we've had with Tech Channel. So anyway, today, welcome to Inside the Integrated File System. This particular discussion is kind of a perennial favorite of ours. We've continued to update it over the many years, and we've updated it for some of the changes in version 7.6 of the operating system as well. The Integrated File System, the IFS, has enabled our IBMIs to support web technologies, open source, PC file types, virtualized storage, Windows file shares, languages like Java, Python, Ruby, source file management with Git, and it's even allowed IBMI to support another virtual IBMI instance. So I always like to ask people, what's in your IFS? So my name is Chuck Lazinski. I am the Director of Technical Solutions for the robot product line here at Fortra, and I'm a first-time IBMI champion 2025, and I'm super pleased to be, thank you, Tom, I'm super pleased to be joined by another IBM champion today, Tom Huntington. Most of you probably know.
I like your saying, what's in your IFS? I almost think of what's in your eye. No, that's not good. So anyways, thanks, Chuck. Great to be here with you to talk about the IFS again. It's been a little while since we brought this to you live. Yes, I am an IBM champion. Believe it or not, 10 years now, Chuck. So excited to be here with everyone. I like to point out back to the championship program. It's a great program. You too can get involved in it. It's a way of helping IBM market IBMI. One of the things I did was started the marketplace survey over 12 years ago, and that's been a big, nice item in the market. So great to be with you. Looking forward to education around the integrated file system.
Yep, and today we've got a packed agenda, and we're also going to show you some information about storage management, replication, and security. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so here's our agenda for today. Certainly we'll talk about what is the IFS, where did it come from, how do you get started with it, what's stored in the IFS, some different directory type file systems, how do you work with it, how do you replicate it, back up, because it's always important if you have something stored out on your server that you know how to back it up or replicate it. And then of course, security is on everybody's mind, so we always have to be very conscious of that. So where did the IFS come from, the integrated file system, or better known as just a directory, or as you say, it's more than a directory structure in a way, but really think of it as a very large directory on IBMI. Believe it or not, it's been around since 1994. What's the math on that, Chuck? Is that like 31 years now?
Yeah.
A long time. And so it's the way IBM introduced basically being a Unix compliant system. They needed to support Unix compliance directories, file systems, and that's where this came from, because we used to be just, the libraries and files and objects, right? So now open source, Unix, Windows, all take advantage of the integrated file system. And, it contains directory structure, much like you'd see in Linux and Windows. As a matter of fact, if that's your background, it does behave like that. Each of the different predefined file systems contain within a single root directory that we have on the system. And each of these file systems comply with the various limitations and rules to the various type of file systems. So even the traditional library structure can be found under the IFS directory structure, and we'll show you that today in case you haven't seen that before. So why? Let's think about some of the different applications that exist out there. Certainly imaging packages in the past, document management today takes advantage of the IFS, open source packages, ISO images from installation packages from your various vendors, including IBM, use it. The PASE or Unix environment takes advantage of the IFS. Client access executables run from there. Configuration files for TCP/IP, WASP, you name it, MQ series, things like that. Tomcat, HTTP servers all use this technology, and various vendors like JD Edwards and SAP, two of the more well-known, and even applications from N4 today use that file system.
Right. Yeah. So I like to say, Tom, it is more than just a directory structure. I mean, that's what it looks like. It just looks like a directory structure. But I think of it as how IBMI has continued to reinvent itself, all right, from its proprietary library and library and object structure to something that maybe looks more normal to the rest of the world. All right. So as Tom mentioned, for instance, the library file structure is out there. And keep in mind, the library file structure has certain naming conventions, right? 10-character name, and every object in the library has a particular object type associated with it that can't be changed. That's much different than QOpenSys, which is the Unix compliant file system that's in the integrated file system. That allows super long names, it's case sensitive and so forth. Quite a bit different than the library file structure. We've got user-defined file systems. So for instance, if you're independent ASP user, you're using user-defined or UDFS. The UDFS also used to support the old Windows X series cards. Let's see, what else do we have? The QOPT, it's an older file system that used to be used quite a bit. We use that for our help systems or Fortra products for installing years ago. There's also QDLS. We'll talk a little bit about that, but that's an older file system that's not used so much anymore, even though Tom and I talk to customers all the time. Yeah, we store things in QDLS, and we go, you should think about maybe changing that out a little bit. QNTC, you might see that out there. QFileServe 400, a very interesting way to do IBMI to IBMI visibility. And then we do support NSF as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some basics. So everything starts in the root. That's where all the file systems exist, and you can create user directories right off of the root. All right, now these directories support stream files. So that's the terminology we'll use to talk about those unstructured data files that are in a directory. So for instance, if you have a mapped drive to a Windows PC and you store PC files there, all right, those are considered to be more unstructured. So we're talking, video files, XML, audio, HTML files, and so forth. Additionally, terminology, maybe I should call this the slide terminology. IFS stream files might also be referred to as links on the IBMI side. And ultimately, it allows some pretty good performance when it comes to connecting a client to IBMI. All right, our first polling question, Janine.
Excellent, time for that. So we want to know, what are your challenges with the IFS? And you can select all if you want. We want to know about whether or not security is an issue for you, understanding what is actually in the IFS, cleaning it up, monitoring its growth, or replication. So if you could take a moment to answer that polling question, we would appreciate it. It helps us understand where to emphasize our presentation today. So while
Tom,
you're filling that out,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say most of it.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, most of the things I spend time with are understanding what's in there and cleaning it up with my clients.
Yeah, cleaning up is a big part of it. But I was going to promote some education coming up. Common Fall is in Pittsburgh this year in September, called Navigate, a great place for education. Also coming up in June from Fortra, we'll be doing a 2 different day, same topic webinar on how to upgrade to IBMI 6.1 with Pete Macciola on June 18th and 19th. And then back live in July, we'll have Mr. Steve Will from IBM. So looking forward to having Steve back to talk about the progression and the history of IBMI or AS400 or iSeries or even System 38 and 36 if you want to talk about those things. So anyways, looking forward to that. Janine, looks like we have some results in here for this question. And
I went ahead and launched those to the audience.
Thank you. So I'm seeing about 23% for both cleaning things up, security, and monitoring its growth as kind of pretty equal. And then just purely understanding what is even out there, which is, a great need out there too. So this will be, it sounds like we got a great set of topics here that we will cover in today's webinar. So looking forward to it. Let's jump back over to the presentation and move on from the polling question. So how do you get started with the IFS, right? What do you do to navigate and get into it? So with IBMI, IBM has included several ways of accessing it. And as I looked at this, Chuck, we probably need for future to move Q Shell up into that multiple options. So you got the Access Client that you can use, you got the Navigator for I, you have 5250 and technically Q Shell where you can use that to access the IFS. And then IBM's provided familiar DOS-like commands for creating or making directories, changing your current directory, removing or deleting items out of a directory. There's, of course, the copy commands, the delete, and then many of these things can be done without a command by just navigating through Access Client, Navigator for I, or the 5250 work link. And that gives you the ability to do these things from more of a, call it a menu or option-based type function. And then work link is IBMI's command to get started from a green screen. We'll show you some of that today. Q Shell, start Q Shell commands. We are not going to show those today, but that is for those who have a Linux or Unix background, certainly a place where you might live and do your access to the directories. And then IBM is always updating the documentation. There are APIs for accessing the IFS from programmatically, and the current documentation for 7.6 is out there, easy to find. And similarly, SQL Services has been a big emphasis by IBM to give you access to the IBMI server, and those things are also now been updated for 7.6. Root directory. Let's talk about root directory. So the root directory is a place where we get started. And this is the area where people also get in trouble. We'll talk about security later on, but one of the things that you should emphasize is controlling who has access to root on your system, just like you'd have that issue in Linux and Unix world. Root directories can be upper or lowercase names, and there is no distinction made. In other words, if Tom is all lowercase, it's the same as Tom all uppercase. Each part of the path can be up to 255 characters. And of course, you can have extremely long path names by nesting your directories or subdirectories. So basically, all the various file systems are going to branch off the root file system. All right. And so here's the handy command work link, WRKLINK. And if we do a slash, backward slash like we see here, that's going to give us access to the root directory, and just simply pull that up for you. And then once we get in there, if we go on to the next slide, we can see some very familiar directory names here. We have, of course, various application directories or personal directories. We have the AFON, for instance, as a personal directory. The automate is something that came from a vendor install. Bin, dev, etc, home, temp. Those are things that you will see from other file systems, especially Linux, Unix. You'll see those directories out there, and I can remember being in a AIX session, and they talked about somebody accidentally deleting etc, and that caused all kinds of problems. And I'm thinking to myself, from an IBMI perspective, you mean etc. But anyways, it's etc in the Linux and Unix world, so just kind of a fun little thing there. All right. And then, of course, we can also use Access Client Solutions to access the IFS. This is very powerful, and probably my favorite way of looking at the IFS from the GUI. And then something I've never used, and it's been there forever, is the integrated file system option right off a 5250 screen. I know, Chuck, you use that, but I've honestly had never, until we talked about this the other day, have used that. And it's, typical IBMI. You have the goodness is you have many ways of looking at things. The badness is you have many ways of looking at things, so it gets confusing. But it's the same thing. So here we are. Speaking of that, a third way we're showing you here is through Navigator for I, through the newer browser. And this is something to pay attention to. I know Tim Rowe and group at Rochester are working a lot on Navigator for I and improving it, and we expect more and more things, especially in the IFS area. I think they got a ways to go, but you certainly can look at things and find things through the same user interface. I mean, IBMI's got a browser, Chuck? So that's that. So let's talk about what's stored in your IFS and move on. First of all, another, besides the root, we also have qsys.lib. All right, this is your traditional library structure where you typically are storing RPG, COBOL programs, CLP programs, etc. out in qsys.lib. You can access or reference that directory system through the IFS basically syntax or directory syntax, but there are still a lot of things where you need to make sure you're still using the library syntax. So for instance, like backups, you're not going to use SAV to back up libraries. You're going to use the traditional save live non-sys, save object, save change object commands to save that area. And then, so then we have the work link command here from the Navigator for I, or I'm sorry, not the work link command, but the Navigator for I browser interface. Going in, you can simply go into the browser, click on File Systems. You'll see that little structure down here, and then it will default and show you all the home directory initially. But and then you can also search in here. So I could go in and actually search for qsys.lib from the Navigator for I, or I can go find it and navigate into it through work link on the system. And of course, we have QDLS, as Chuck mentioned, the old Office Vision document management system out there. PC support used to use it back in the day, right? We don't recommend using it. If you have end users that are using it and developers who are still using it and saying they need to use it, you need to change that because it's old. It's been surpassed in technology. It can't be journaled. It's a different backup method to back it up than your other IFS areas. So just, you have to stop the madness, as we say it, and move on from that particular technology. All right, Chuck, let's talk about Unix structures. You're muted. That always happens.
Thank you, sir. So appreciate that. /2OpenSys and everything underneath there is its own file system. And that's the Unix structure, highly Unix compliant. What's interesting is it does support upper and lowercase naming All right, those are distinct objects and directory names once you're inside of the QOpenSys directory. You can refer to QOpenSys either with uppercase or lowercase, but once you're working inside of it, upper and lowercase does apply. So that reemphasizes the fact that all these file systems have their own rules. All right, one of the rules is there's really no limit to the hierarchy depth. So whatever you need to use for your Unix type application, you can do that there. Okay. And Tom's going to talk about journaling a little bit later, but journaling does apply to these IFS directories as well. So you can do live journaling. So just for instance, as far as naming convention goes, it's case sensitive, uppercase address, lowercase address. They are distinct in this world. Okay, also long file names. So here's in the green screen. How do you look at a long file name in the green screen? Well, it turns out there's an F22 key. So you put your cursor on that line, hit F22, and it'll show you the complete directory structure. But for instance, if you're looking at Navigator for I, of course, you'll just see the long directory structure. So I will point out, Tom, I've been working with more and more customers, especially younger customers, who are totally focused on the browser for accessing things like the IFS and for working with security and whatnot on the system. So that's just a little aside. Okay, another file system that you can take advantage of allows system-to-system visibility in a job. And it uses what's called qfileserv.400. So /qfileserv.400, and then a slash underneath that. IBMI to IBMI directory visibility. All right, it just requires that Q server and the auto start job entries there be active, or pre-start jobs. And then it's authenticated with the jobs user profile and password. All right. And it's kind of cool. All you have to do is create a subdirectory under qfileserv 400 that matches the DNS or IP of the target system. And then you can literally, for instance, here you can see I'm creating a subdirectory in qfileserv 400 called Academy. I'm on my Wisdom system, but I'm creating this subdirectory. And then when I navigate to that directory, I then have the visibility into that, and I can move things around and work with it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool in that respect. Finally, let's talk about user-defined file systems a little bit. The first time I ran into a user-defined file system in the IFS, it was being used as virtual storage for what was called the integrated X series card, or a Windows card, so to speak, plugged in to my AS400. All right. And so the user-defined file system was defined to provide storage for that X series card. And we've got the commands here, for instance, to create that user-defined file system. But basically, you guys decide what the rules are in that user-defined file system. Once the user-defined file system is created, it's then mounted, and then it becomes available. So where do we use this today? We use this with integrated or with independent ASP technology. So first of all, you'll see in the /dev directory, you'll see the definition of the independent ASP there. And then you'll also see a separate directory off the root that will actually show you what's stored in the IFS. And both Tom and I will show you a little bit about what that looks like. All right, Tom, I've got a live demo that has expanded a little bit on me. A lot of fun things.
You keep finding new things, huh?
Yeah, a lot of fun things you can do. So keep an eye on me. Make sure I share the right thing here.
It looks like you're going. Looks like it's coming up here shortly.
Okay. Can you see my white screen?
I do. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Let's start with this. So just first of all, Tom pointed out work link. All right. So you notice when I type work link, I don't go to the root. I go to my home directory. All right. So if I do, for instance, a display user profile, and I look at my user profile and I page down to the end here, you will see I have a home directory associated with my profile. Okay, so that's where it's getting that from. So if you do want to go to a specific location like work link root, okay, now I'm at the root. All right, now I could always do a change current directory, or I could do a change directory. This might sound a little bit more familiar to us. I'm going to prompt that. Notice that's an alias for the change current directory command. So I might want to make my current directory just /home. All right, so now when I do a work link, now it takes me to the home directory. Okay, I'm going to put that back. /home/Chuck. All right, so that's a little bit about how that works. So let's look at some file systems, and I'm going to start in the green screen, but then we're going to go to the browser and we're going to go to ACS and look at some of that. Okay, so I'm going to drill into the root. Here's a couple of directories, basically vendor personal directories. All right, here's some well-known directories that are listed under here that will look familiar, especially if you're in the Unix world. Paging down, you will see the home directory. That's pretty common, right? Everybody has that on IFS, as well as in the Unix world. I'm going to keep paging down here. You will see QDLS. I'm going to go into QDLS right here. All right, notice it says folders. So this is a much different system that we don't recommend even using because it's limited to 8 character names or file names, 8.3, kind of like the old DOS world. All right. qfileserv.400. All right, so for instance, I'm going to go there right now. There's nothing in there. So I'm going to do a make directory qfileserv.400. And I'm going to create a directory for a target system, my academy system. Remember, I'm on Wisdom. Okay.
This is IBMI to IBMI, right?
IBMI to IBMI directory visibility. All right. Boom. I'm now working in the IFS on my target system. Okay. All right. And we're not going to get super granular on this, but you can go out and study up on that a little bit on your own. I just want to make sure you guys know that that exists. This is not a persistent connection. So for instance, if you IPL your system, you have to put that make directory command into your IPL program.
And there's a timer limit on it too. I think it's like 2 hours, Chuck. That'll time out and disconnect without the IPL.
Okay. So here's QOpenSys. All right. This is the Unix file structure. All right.
Some people asking about QNTC too.
Oh, actually, you know what?
There.
Yep. Work link. Let's go back in there.
Oops.
Hang on. Jumping around. I'm getting a little quick.
Sorry. I spoofed his demo. Oh no.
Okay. Let's drop down to QOpenSys. Here's QOpenSys. All right. So here in QOpenSys, you will see naming convention. All right. You can have upper and lowercase names. So for instance, I have an address and I have an address. Those are 2 distinct names. Okay. I'm going to do one other thing. Now we have an independent ASP associated with this. So if I do a display ASP status, IASP01, you can see we have an independent ASP associated with this partition. All right. So if I go to my dev directory, my device directory here, and go down to the bottom, you will see here's the definition of that independent ASP. So this user-defined file system has been created. This would be a UDFS. And it is also mounted, which is one of the requirements to see the data on this partition. So if I scroll down to my, did I scroll by it? There it is, IASP01.
You went by it.
Yeah, there it is. So here's IASP01. It's been mounted. And now I have visibility now into that IASP through the IFS.
Click on the
Okay, so
qsys.lib link too,
sure.
if you don't mind.
Look at that.
And this is showing you all the libraries that are stored out in that IS.
Yeah. And so the naming convention, of course, is very specific. 10-character object names, 3-character extensions identifying the 3 or 4-character extensions identifying the object type. Okay, so let's get rid of this and let's go to Navigator for I. All right. So this is where a lot of people prefer to work nowadays. So first of all, I'm going to log in and you're going to see this message. All right. So I wanted you to see this because you need to configure a TLS connection to have a secure connection to your IBMI. All right. And if you click on this, it'll just walk you through that configuration. So I'm going to work on my Wisdom system. This isn't meant to be an ACS training session. We're still going to focus on strictly on IFS. So IFS can be accessed down here. So first of all, we have integrated file system access. We also have file shares. And I actually have my file share mounted here in a map drive. All right. So for instance, I could go into my home Chuck directory. All right, and I can drill in there and get to the data that's located there. But let's go into the integrated file system. Okay, a couple things. First of all, you'll see an action button up here with various things you can do on IFS objects. Okay, so just for instance, let's drill into AA webinar, and you can see I have some files there. All right, I can download that file. I can look at properties. I can also go into permissions. This will be a kind of an advanced look at our security section. All right, object owner, star public still applies. I can add and change depending on how much authority that I have. All right, I would need star secadmin authority to work with that. Okay. Now, one thing you'll notice though is if in the actions or if I right click, there is no make directory. All right, it's not in Navigator. It does exist in the ACS interface. So let's actually go to that right now. All right, so here's my ACS interface. Actions, integrated file system. All right, so I'm going to go to that now. So what's going to happen now is it'll take me to my current directory, and I can navigate around here just like I was in the green screen. Additionally, I'm going to right click. I can
maybe
also
go a little bigger on that screen if you don't mind.
Sure.
Full screen. Yeah.
Let's see if I can.
Oh, it's still small font.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still
Never
small.
Mind.
But what I wanted to point out is I can create new directories. So that's the same. The new folder is the same as the make directory command. Also, I want to point out, for instance, here's a PDF or any of these files that are stored in my home directory. There's a number of download options. Okay. And I can get to permissions here. All right. So I actually kind of like the ACS interface a little better than the Navigator interface. But again, keep an eye on Navigator because there's always new things coming out. The last thing I'll show you here is inside of Navigator, there is a security option. Oh, and by the way, in either Navigator or ACS, let me go to the ACS again for 1 second. These options in the action menu, these are securable, and we have a webinar on our website, how to securely deploy Access Client Solutions. Highly recommend that you watch that webinar to learn how to secure these options from your average user. Another way to secure things is with, let's get rid of that menu, is with this security option. Okay, there is something called a function usage. All right, function usage. This is the same as the command work function usage. All right, you need a certain level of, you need secadmin authority to use this, but
This is controlling the
with,
usage of various functions within the browser, Navigator for I.
yes, yeah, let's go there.
Mhm.
Function usage. So right here, you'll see you can do granular security of the options that are available in Navigator for I. So on user profiles, we're only given so many special authorities. This is a more granular approach. So for instance, working with the file system, all right, you could literally lock that down. All right, so that was, sorry, Tom, there was a lot I wanted to
Wow.
share.
Yeah, we're going to have to put the pedal to the metal, as they say, right?
Okay,
And you're
let's
up
do
on the
that.
slides.
All right. All right, so let's look at commands. And this is basically going to be a little bit of review. All right, so for instance, directory commands. Okay, we've looked at those, link commands and so forth. So make directory in the green screen, that's MD, the same as create directory. So those are the same commands, MD and create directory, same with remove directory. Okay, change current directory, we already looked at that. Link commands, work link, but there's also add link. So for instance, there's something called a symbolic link where you can have a reference to an object, for instance, in another library. So here I'm creating a link to an object that exists in Kirsten's library, but I'm creating that symbolic link in my library. Okay. Copy commands can be pretty useful, obviously just copying or moving objects, but there's also copy to stream file, copy from stream file. So you can move things from the library system into the IFS, IFS into the library, and likewise copy the import file. So it's more of a CSV type format with those commands. And the reason we're talking about these commands is Tom and I are all about automation. So we're talking about CL programming, right? So for instance, copy to stream file here. I'm going to take my my December file out of my library, and I'm going to copy that into a text file in the IFS. Finally, SQL Services. IBM has updated, again, SQL Services in 7.6 of the operating system. So I went out there, and these are the services that are available for IBM I. So that's another way to get work with the integrated file system. Tom, let's talk a little bit about monitoring and cleanup.
Right. You know, one of the challenging or polling questions was, how do I clean up the IFS, or I have problems cleaning up the IFS, and what's in the IFS? And obviously, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at the IFS through the free iNavigator, the Access clients, the work link, Q shell, all those kinds of things. There's even a retrieve disk info command that comes with IBM I to look at the IFS to get a feel for what's in it. But we just happen to feel Robot Space does a better job. So let me jump over, and I guess I got to do a live demo here. So share, and I'm going to share my entire screen here. So one of the things we wanted to show you again, and I think you already showed this, Chuck, so it's kind of repeat, but the IS technology, you can go right into that with work link here. And now I'm dealing with independent auxiliary storage pools, which is often used primarily with Power HA these days for replicating disk-to-disk replication, right? So, and we're just drilling in, showing you that I can drill in. Can I do? I don't think I can actually do. I can do the. Oh, I can. Okay, so here's the individual objects that are in the library, and you can see all the different file types. You get the object type, which is very traditional column for IBM I objects, but then from a reference perspective, when you're doing it from a directory perspective, you got to do the .outq .file, etc. Okay, that's great. So that's IASP. Now, jumping over to Robot Space, it is a GUI. One of the things that we do is we have a collection group on this system. It's collecting everything on the system, libraries, objects, IFS, all those things are being collected down to the member level. So what that gives me is the ability to use what we call the Collection Explorer. And notice I can look at that same IASP now, but I can look at it through a GUI. and I can see my IFS directories, all those things in the GUI. But I like this detail collection because detail collection gives me the entire system. So for instance, I can see my top libraries on the system, but more importantly, I can see my top directories. So I can see my home directory and my QM directory. So like here is, obviously something that probably could be cleaned up. These objects, let's see, these are all QMs that were installed on this system. And if I scroll over to the right, looks like they're from, actually, these are relatively new from May 23rd of 2025. So not so bad, but QM directories out there, you have the open sys directory. And then you can even do things like I can see the size history of this directory. Pretty flat here for that directory. But more importantly, what if I wanted to see how my IFS grew since March 23rd? I can right click on both of these and I can do a comparison of my IFS directory. And now it's going to show me, what's grown the most. Our robot network has some log files, Chuck, that need to be purged. Okay. Those have grown. And I can do something again like size history and see that it took off here in May.
Whoa.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah. You got some work, Chuck. What's going on?
All right. I'm on it.
I also can come back to this May 25th collection and just click on IFS files. And I can see off the top here, my big file from the Go Anywhere team is the biggest file. And then we have big file text and so forth. And there's actually even some filter capabilities. I don't have any pre-built, but you can come out and build a filter. So I could look for something that has all the .bin type objects or ISO, or here's like a zip, or even like a save file out here, or a tar file, which would be possibly stored out in the IFS. So a lot of good ways that you can do that. And due to time, Chuck, I think that's going to be it for this particular
That was good.
demo. Let's go back to the slide deck here and move on and talk about how do we replicate and save the IFS. So I think this is my section, so I'll continue on with our presentation. So saving and restore. Again, to back up things that are in the IFS that need to be backed up, which occasionally, Chuck, we run into customers that say, I don't use the IFS, right? Well, you have an IBM I server, you are using the IFS. Guarantee that something's being put out there. There's, installations, whatever, the applications are using it, etc. But so to me, I'm a backup and recovery guy. So you want to do the SAV for backing up directories, the RST. Notice it's not restore object and it's not save object. It's SAV and RST. These, when you run these commands, they're going to use syntax like you do in all the other areas of the IFS. So, however, if I want to use an object out of the traditional library structure, I need to reference it using /qsys.lib/tape01.dev description in case here. What happened if my tape definition or my save file was in QGPL? I would have to be qsys.lib/qgpl.lib/Tom's savefile.file. That's how I would do a save file backup using these commands. And then also what we want to do is if we're backing up the entire IFS, we want to exclude the library structure and the document structure. Again, the old QDLS, QDoc stuff is saved with another command called save DLO. Save doc, save DLO. It's been a while. Anyways, now the other thing we can do is we can journal most of the IFS area, not all of it. Notice I said most of it, using the start journ command, the end journal command for ending it. Now, your journal objects and your journal receivers exist, you guessed it, in the traditional qsys.lib structure. So when you reference those in those commands, you have to use those naming conventions. You can use wildcards, for instance, if you want to journal particular objects in a directory. Our product like Robot HA makes use of this. I'll show you an example of that in a bit. And then a reminder, you cannot journal QDLS. You also can't journal tape cartridges. I've tried that. I had some curious reasons for doing that, and you can't journal those either. So with our robot HA product, we do replicate journals, and journals can be real time. So it's kind of fun. I want to show you here that we can do that. And in a live demo, I'm going to just show you a few things here. Okay, so let me go back over and see if we can practice and get the entire screen over there. Let me get that out of the way. Let me get that out of the way. Sorry, I got to get just a few screens up here in the background. It's making me nervous. All right, here we go. Full screen. All right, so we're back on this green screen, but actually I'll stay large screen for a bit. So if I want to journal an IFS directory, I'm going to do this command here, start journal. I can prompt this. I'm going to journal my directory called TomH5 in the home directory. So it could be a different directory. Notice I'm referencing what journal, qsys.lib. My journal library happens just to be called journallib.lib. It doesn't have to be called journallib. And the the journal itself is called iHomeTomH.journal. That's the object type. So I hit enter on this, and it'll tell you right down here, one object has started journaling. So now if I added anything to that directory, it's going to automatically be journaled. Now, I just wanted to show you that. So now I'm going to turn around and just end the journal for that moment. So in the HA product, what we do is go in, and if I just quickly show you, there's an IFS area. And if I roll down here, one of my directories I'm journaling is TomH, going to a journal. Okay, so let's go small screen here. Let's do F21 right here. And I'm going to do a work link. Come on. I got all these things queued up, Chuck. I thought that was easier than me trying to type it because I normally make typing mistakes. And if I go over to my target system and do that same command and look at this directory, we'll see a lot of the same objects out here. If I come into this particular object, the alert2 CSV, and open it up on this side also, we'll see Chuck is a cool dude, right? I don't think so. I don't know. Tom is terrific. All right. And I probably spelled that wrong. All right. Is there two F's in terrific? I don't know. So when I back out of here and save it, I have to back out of here and come back in. And look at that. It changed it already. So awesome. Same would be true if let's just say I deleted these two objects, alert 6 and alert 7, and come back over here and do a refresh, alert 6 and alert 7. So it's content within the stream file, and it's the object itself that gets changed automatically. Well done. All right, stop sharing. Yeah, let's go over to our slides and move over to security. I think that's you, Chuck.
Yeah, it is. And so, yeah, let's jump into security, right? All right. Mm-hmm. So when thinking about securing your integrated file system, you can think about it sort of like library authority and object authority. Secure the directory, secure the stream file. You can use IBMI group profiles, and we have the default public authority defined on IFS objects as well. Now, what's interesting is that not only does the standard group profile and public authority and whatnot still apply, but we have IBMI, Unix, and PC type security. All right. So, for instance, to make a object hidden, right? That's one of the security settings in the Windows world. So if you go through your Windows Explorer on a map drive, you will see those PC type securities associated in the properties option when you look at objects there. Of course, it does require SecAdmin as usual. Then we have a couple of IFS authority tips, all right? And by the way, authorities within the IFS world, sometimes referred to as privileges, more like the Unix world. But first of all, a couple of tips is we recommend changing an authority list. Of course, talk to your security or your admin group for IBMI first before you do this, but we recommend changing the authority list QPWF server star public to exclude, and that will exclude access to qsys.lib through, for instance, Windows Explorer. Okay, so you want to protect that world. And then, of course, we already mentioned to secure iNavigator functionality, the work function usage for all those nav type functions. You can lock those down. And as I already mentioned, you can also secure the IFS access in ACS. Just watch that webinar, how to securely deploy access client solutions. So much like the save lib, save object, etc. Commands in the save and restore world and how they differ in the IFS world, likewise, the authority commands differ a bit in the IFS. Display authority, work authority, change owner instead of change object owner. All right, and you can use wildcards. All right, so for instance, under my change authority command example, I show securing all the objects in the chuck directory, giving public certain authority. All right, so you can use wildcards. Likewise, if you're in the green screen navigating around WorkLink, option 9 will take you into the authority menu. Otherwise, right-click on an object in the browser and you can get to permissions. And of course, you can get to that work authority command also in the ACS IFS access as well. All right, so here we're looking at how the authority is set up in the for the help systems directory. All right, I'm looking at it in the green screen. I probably could have made a little more room on the screen, but notice public has read and execute data authority, and then object authorities are listed off to the right. And here's how you see that then in the iNavigator. Okay, so Tom, I'm actually kind of leaning maybe a little bit more toward Navigator and ACS access when working with object level authority, and I can see why some of the newer guys, the young guns, so to speak, on the system are into that as well.
It's a nice layout. I really do compliment IBM on that. They've done a good job with that layout.
Yeah.
It's great.
So let's talk about protecting your IFS. All right. So one thing you want to know is that the IFS is a good carrier of viruses. Pretty easy to spread viruses, and there are system objects now stored in the integrated file system, and there has been for a long time. So if anybody has a map drive, for instance, you want to protect the directory structure in the integrated file system from viruses and malware. So we have a tool called PowerTech Antivirus for IBMI. Gets a lot of attention, has a lot of installs around the world, and we want to make you aware of that. If you're interested in getting some information, we can help you. Also, a product that's near and dear to my heart, PowerTech Encryption. I work with this quite a bit. It's primarily used for DB2 on IBMI field level encryption. It does, however, have an IFS encryption component where we can encrypt all the objects in a directory. You tell us what to encrypt, we'll encrypt it, and then you can secure access to that encrypted data. All right, Tom, how about the security scan?
Well, security scan is a great way of looking at the IFS from a security perspective. It's free. It's something that we've been doing for over 2 decades now at Help Systems Fortra, and highly recommended. So all you got to do is ask or go out to our website and fill out a form for it. We'll allow you to run it on as many partitions as you want, but then we will also do a free 1-hour session with you for one of those partitions and help walk you through what we found security wise. And one of the things that we do look at is the IFS. Okay. So in summary, Chuck, what did we talk about today?
We have a long list, don't we? So keep in mind, keep in mind that the IFS is our world. It's pretty much our entire world. All right. We showed you commands where you can manipulate data. You could string commands together in a CL program to automate things. We showed you a little bit how to monitor it, either through CL commands or certainly through something like Robot Space. Tom showed you how to back it up. You can journal it. You could, for instance, even if you're really interested in doing some heavy-duty replication, you could look at something like Robot HA. We talked about securing the IFS. We also talked a little bit about virus protection, something to think about. So, whether you're just looking for some education on the IFS or you're looking to lock things down, protect it, and monitor it and clean it up, we can help you with that here at Fortra.
Yeah, and Chuck, this is a nice handy slide for some of the various topics we talked about. We'll probably leave this up during Q&A. There's some active links there. If you're interested in IFS analysis and cleanup, you can click on that link. The antivirus for IFS and file shares. And let's not forget, we also protect you from the outside world with ransomware protection with that, so things can't be encrypted. And then data replication and how we do that for IFS and libraries for that matter. So I guess it's time for questions and answers, Chuck, or questions, and then hopefully we have the answers to them. And noticing that we're really close to the top of the hour, so we may not get to everything. And really, that's one of the things that's out there is IBM susceptible to ransomware? You see different conflicting things from IBM. What are your thoughts on ransomware and IBM, Chuck?
We have multiple reports of ransomware attacking our beautiful integrated file system. And so I think people would be wise to put some protection around that.
Yeah,
so the answer
and better
is yes,
security, right? And better security.
Yes.
So Chuck talked about protecting the root directory. So did I.
Yep.
That's where it all begins. But we've seen ransomware encryption on directories. We've also seen full ransomware against IBM, and that happens because somebody from the outside world, meaning maybe from a Windows or Linux desktop or server, ransomware has mapped drives to IBM, and it executes, and away it goes.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, what about QDLS?
Yeah. Do you need it? Right? That was the question, right? Do you need it?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but do you need to use it? The answer is no.
Right.
So I don't think you can just remove it from the system. You certainly could secure it and prevent people from putting things out there. Just old habits die hard, just like people still use SEU and PDM on the IBM. It's just what we're comfortable with. I'm as guilty as the next. I'll fire up something like that, and oh yeah, there are better ways or newer interfaces, but we kind of use what we know. Right. So great question on that.
Yeah. There is a question about how do I know who created a file share? And I just went out to look at my file shares. I don't want to share my file shares, so I looked at it, and I am not seeing, for instance, an owner of a file share. So that might be something, maybe that shows up, and I guess that would require some testing. It might show up in history log, display log, possibly. But that is a darn good question.
Or security audit journal.
Security audit journal. Yeah, I bet
we'd have to double check that
be
for you, Kevin, and get back to you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a couple other unanswered questions we'll have to get back on.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is the top of the hour. Janine, back over to you guys. And on behalf of Fortra, thank you, Tech Channel, for allowing us to have another webinar with your group.
Thank you, Tom. All right. I have a feeling a lot of you want copies of today's PDF version of today's slide deck. So if you join late, right now go to Event Resources and click on that drop-down menu and select the slide deck. And you can download it right now before we conclude. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. A special thank you to Chuck and Tom for sharing their insights and expertise with us today. Later this week, watch for a follow-up email. It will contain a link to the recording of today's webinar, so you can watch it again or forward it to your colleagues in leadership to view on demand. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.